will include the commissioner candidates, followed lastly by the mayoral candidates. And you are welcome to submit your questions online. There is a live audience here joining us tonight, and they will also be submitting questions to the candidates. We are going to roll right into it with the first batch of candidates. Appreciate you all being here tonight. As part of your opening statement, we would ask that you state your name along with a short reason as to why you are running for town commissioner. Mr. Carney, we'll start with you.
Sure. My name's Robert Carney. I live on the east side of Cornelius, and I'm a 15-year economic development professional that specialized in managing and working as a subject matter expert with elected leaders on how to grow and how to grow in a way that increases the quality of life of a community. So I'm running because this is the first opportunity I've ever had in my career. I've now come into the private sector that I can actually leverage my skills, my knowledge, and the things I've learned to actually help my hometown of Cornelius, or my home of Cornelius. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Furcht.
Yes, hi, I'm Colin Furcht. I'm currently a town commissioner. 2 years ago, I had the honor of being put into this seat because I feel that I listened to what the community wanted. And several of us ran together, and we kind of stick to our guns on that one. And my plan is to continue to do exactly that. We heard you, we listened, and I think we really did what we said we were going to do. I think also for me, it's about being active in the community. I sit on 4 subcommittees. Parks and Rec and the Chamber being 2 of those. And I think it's important that you see your representatives out and about. And anybody that's been out and about would know that I would be one of those folks. So my plan is to continue to do that as well and continue to listen.
Real quick, just a point of clarity, sir. My last name is Ckezepis, so you can imagine how that gets butchered. Is it Furcht or Furcht? Furcht. I feel like you're owed that respect, so I appreciate you, sir. Yes, sir. Mr. Higgins.
Yes, my name is Scott Higgins, and I've worked with the town in the service capacity for over 10 years, and I've spearheaded a number of projects that I think have transformed the community and the quality of life in Cornelius, and had an impact on the economic development as well, in art, in safety, and recreation, and transportation, a number of different areas. And I come to that service of my background being working with university administrators and athletic conference administrators. And so I think I'm very good at building relationships. And at the same time, I've been out in the community riding my bicycle all over in the different neighborhoods and talking to people and asking them, what is it that you want? What is it you want less of? And over time, I built a relationship with the community, which I think has led me to want to serve the town in elected capacity.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Johnson.
Hi, good evening. My name is Susan Johnson. I am a residential real estate broker and a local business owner in Cornelius. And I also have 2 children that I've raised here in Cornelius. And the reason why I'm running, honestly, is because I genuinely love Cornelius and I'm passionate about it. And I am very proud to be a resident. Over the last 10 years, I have served on various boards and committees for the town. Currently, I am the planning board chair and have been on planning board for the last 8 years. And so just using my experience, I want to essentially take the next step to, as town commissioner, to continue what I have been able to do over the last 8 years in planning, which is listen to our citizens and also address projects based upon looking at each side and being objective in determining whether it makes sense and it's a good fit for Cornelius.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Mr. Menzel.
Or Menzel.
Menzel? Is it Menzel?
Whichever you prefer.
Okay.
My name is Bob Menzel, and my family, we moved here, 23 years ago. And the reason I'm running is to pay back. My kids grew up here. My son was here as part of his being part of the Boy Scout program, had to come to a town hall meeting. And I mean, we've just benefited in so many different ways. My background, I'm a business owner. We sold our business in 2019, but we grew it from 1 order in 2005 to 3 manufacturing plants and 2 distribution facilities ranging from here in North Carolina, Tennessee, Nevada, Arizona, and Pennsylvania. So I have a pretty broad spectrum of experience that I can bring included with what our company did with governments. So I have a little bit of a intercompany governmental experience that I'll be able to bring as well. We have 2 children. My son's a major in the United States Air Force. My daughter is a PA with Novant. And in fact, one of the things that I enjoy most when I'm not campaigning these days is service as an admission liaison officer for the United States Air Force Academy, which gives me an opportunity to work with high school kids in Mecklenburg, Gaston, and Lincoln County. Been doing that for 15 years, and it's been truly a rewarding experience.
Thank you. Thank you all again for being here. Once again, the crowd, you are welcome to submit questions if you would like. There are a couple of people who will bring those questions forward at the time. And online, you can also submit questions as well, and those will be passed along to us. By show of hands, how many of you have not been serving at all in an elected capacity before? Okay, we got 2 here. Ms. Johnson. Okay, we'll start with you, Mr. Higgins, in the middle. What do you believe to be the #1 issue in the town of Cornelius?
Well, there seem to be 2 issues with the public. One is traffic congestion and development. And I think we're always going to have congestion, or at least we hope to attenuate that by the new road improvements have been planned. And I think the flow of traffic is critical to resolving that congestion. And I think the roundabouts that are coming around here shortly, and then hopefully we get the 6 road projects. We get some additional monies from CRPTO, and hopefully that'll help us get those projects going.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Johnson.
I also believe traffic is and infrastructure issues are some of the major problems that we have facing today. The amount of growth that we have experienced over the last 10 plus years has created this problem because roads were not built and managed to accommodate the growth that we've seen. And so I think that if we can look at identifying funding options within the town to be able to fund some of these smaller projects that will create connectivity between the various towns, such as North Cross Extension, it will alleviate some of the congestion on West Catawba, on 21, and it will certainly allow for connectivity to occur and alleviation of some of the congestion we've been seeing.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Mr. Carney.
Yeah, sure. So growth and growth management is certainly #1, traffic, obviously #2, but they work hand in hand. I would say one of the biggest problems that we have is what I call the 90-90 issue. 90% of the people that live in Cornelius actually leave every day for work, and 90% of the people that work in Cornelius are actually coming from somewhere else. And that's creating what I would say is a critical imbalance of how the metrics of our community are working today. So that's something that we really need to start actively focusing on and seeing how can we create opportunities for the residents that live here, as well as opportunities for affordable housing for the people that are working here. So I think all of these things are connected. And if you're looking at it and asking the right questions, it starts getting you to the right answers from a strategic planning standpoint.
Thank you. Commissioner Furcht.
So certainly traffic is the word of the day. Everybody talks about traffic, but I'd like to focus a little bit more on the actual growth factor. And I had asked the planning team about 6 months ago to put together a chart of the 31 projects that have been approved prior to this current board, being placed that either haven't started or are at the very early stages. And that's really what we're fighting, is what's coming next. And so I think what we ran on with the growth management task force focus is we really need to just stay focused on that and really make sure that we're not just approving anything that comes our way. We need to be very selective in what that is. Certainly traffic and infrastructure is a focus, but the things we can impact at the town level are going to be more about what's building and what's coming and what we're allowed to come. And that's really the main focus for me.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Menzel?
Well, I agree. Traffic, you don't have to walk down the street and speak to more than 1 or 2 people, and chances are both of them are going to say traffic. It's certainly the first thing I heard about after filing. I think the challenge is the first project that I think is scheduled to come online is early next year, which are the roundabouts up here at 21 and Catawba. The project's going to cost around $22 to $23 million. I don't know whether the folks here and the folks who are listening realize or not, but the town's going to cost the town about $2 or $3 million. Guess where the rest comes from? NCDOT, $19 million. And to be very realistic, you know, the tail is not going to wag the dog in this matter. What will influence the dog is to go over to Raleigh, build relationships. We got a very good helper in the transportation chairman over there, Senator Sawyer, and building those relationships, I think, will help us move those projects along faster.
Let's play a hypothetical game real quick, and let's assume that all 5 of you, if you were elected, were going to pass something, a major project. What type of project do you believe town of Cornelius currently needs? I'll let any of you jump in first.
I know.
Please use your outside voices for those of us in the back of the hall. Sure. Thank you.
I know one thing is a park bond, may come up November 2024, probably should have come up earlier. But when you see the amount of grant funds that can be generated and help pay for the activities that go forward for parks and recreation, it's a tremendous investment. When you survey the citizens, that's the number one thing, is they want those activities to be funded and they want more of them, pickleball, greenways, whatever it is. So I think for the bang for the buck and what we can leverage that money for, the bond money, because it costs money to do bonds, but leveraging that money, you get a lot for your money, and I think it's a lot of what the public wants.
Mr. Carney?
Sure. Really, any project that is creating wealth for both the town of Cornelius as well as its residents, and increasing and improving the quality of life outcomes for the community. So whether it be parks, recreational amenities, but also the things that are adding or restabilizing where the jobs are within the community, as well as how revenue is generated within our market, because that is something that once you get into the numbers behind where Cornelius is today, revenue is one of the primary things we have to start focusing on. How do we generate revenue? Because if we're not, the only thing that results from that is taxes. So if we're not focused on generating revenue through this community, we're going to be focused on tax increases, and that's something we certainly don't want. So anything that is focused on revenue generation, anything that's focused on quality of life amenities throughout the community.
Ms. Johnson?
I think identifying the right commercial projects that would enhance our community certainly would be the first. If we get those commercial projects in place, then they do generate tax dollars, and it will certainly help to offset any sort of potential tax increases that we may see in the near future.
Mr. Menzel?
I'll take a little different tact if you want a specific project. I've had an opportunity to get to know a lot of different people in the community, and one of the people that I met is a fellow by the name of Manny Rosado, who runs the Care Center. And it's an extraordinarily successful program that is providing people with skills so that they can sit there and essentially begin to move towards self-sufficiency. And he needs $375,000 to expand his facility over there. And so it's probably not quite the big project that perhaps you were looking for me to talk about, but I would love to sit there and get involved in finding $375,000 to double the size of the Care Center.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Furcht?
So certainly growing the business community is a priority. We're an 80-20 split when it comes to residential compared to commercial income right now. So any project that's going to bring business jobs, that would be a priority to me. But I think the way we get there is we've got to fix this infrastructure issue. And we have 6 road projects on the short list right now that we can impact. And that's really where I think we need to keep our focus, because we can talk about growth, but everyone knows that if we don't have the infrastructure to support that, it's going to be difficult to get businesses here to really respond to that. So I think for me, it's getting the low-hanging fruit, I'll call it, on the docket and getting that moving. And I think we have a plan for that now. So I think we'll be able to really accomplish that here in the short term.
Let's move to the budget, one of the most primary topics you guys will have as part of being commissioners. Emergency services, particularly the fire department. Do you believe that the fire department should maintain as volunteer, or should there be a full-time staff within the town of Cornelius, and why? Yes, sir.
I'll go first. So I'm a huge proponent of our police and fire. I voted for the increases to get them at least up to par. And so we certainly have more to do there. But I've already requested to the town manager and to the chief. Right now, we've got 12 full-time firefighters. I would like to see us be able to accelerate the full-time program that we're in the middle of right now. So I would be very eager to see how we could make that happen sooner than later, and would certainly support moving all of our fire to full-time.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I think moving toward the command module or combination model is essential now. I think the part-time component worked well for a while, but there are even times on Sunday evening, I know talking to the chief, where we were short-staffed. And I used to be, he told me they would take 12 people that he needed to have on a shift to respond to some of the fires and the needs that they have. And now that's changed to 15. And we don't have that many more full-time firefighters, many of them working for the city of Charlotte and other places. So I'm very much for moving to that, hiring a full-time chief and the staff and being able to staff the fire department the way it needs.
Anybody else want to go? Go ahead, Ms.
I'll
Johnson.
go.
Yeah.
I definitely think that moving to a full-time fire department certainly makes sense. And it's very difficult because most of those firemen also work in other locations such as Charlotte, and they have to split their time between working in Charlotte and working here. And it causes a divide in your dedication to Cornelius specifically. So I think that if we can pay, we should pay from a retention perspective and get the right people in here that will build the right programs that will support our community.
Thank you.
I concur. We need the full-time fire department. It only makes sense in business. I mean, you want to have the people that are responsible for the mission all in one place so they can be on board. They understand the goals and the missions and the competencies that they need to have every day when they come to work to do their job. When you've got a volunteer group, it's going to be in flux. Getting a full-time group together, they will be way more efficient and way more effective.
Mr. Carney.
Wonderful comments. I completely agree. I think culture is essential whenever you're talking about staff and your first responders.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that this transition will allow for them to increase upon. So both our police and our fire, making sure that they're well taken care of, well compensated, well staffed, and obviously have a strong culture and a strong presence in the community. This also lends itself into the conversation of affordable housing and the affordable housing needs. Hopefully we'll get to that here in a little bit too.
That's actually a great transition because you must have been seeing my notes here. But I will say I am grateful for the fire department. They did visit the Ckezepis household last night because of a faulty smoke detector. And so shout out to my wife at home who's running on about 2 minutes of sleep. What is your plan for affordable housing?
Oh, that's a great question. So Michelle Hoverson she's not here with us tonight, but her and I have been meeting on a regular basis to specifically delve into that very, very specific topic as far as creative strategies of how exactly you do that. I know right now their funding is severely limited, but the need is great. This is something where we're going to have to define, the vehicle to do this and the revenue source that's going to be ongoing, that's going to support this. And there's different ways you can go. You can go, whether it's, housing direct or tenant direct, being the individual that needs that house. And with that comes pros and cons that you really have to start digging into to figure out what is going to be the best way for Cornelius moving forward. But additionally, there's going to be a lot of partners that have to be involved in it. It's not a lift that Cornelius can do itself. It's going to be Mecklenburg County and even the state that's probably going to have to be involved. So big priority for this community.
Thank you, Mr. Carney. Mr. Furcht?
So I wholeheartedly supported the CDC and the funding of that. I'm also on the grant committee. We approved additional grants for that program. The most recent project that we approved, we made sure that there was affordable housing as part of that project. So it's definitely paramount for us. And certainly as a supporter of police and fire and town staff, I would love to have everybody live in Cornelius. I know that's a pretty big ask, but that would be fantastic if we could make it that way. So I just think we need to continue as a town to support all of the partners across the region that are going to continue to help us find those developers or those programs that are going to help folks be able to live in Cornelius, because I think there's, certainly a challenge for folks that may not be making, significant income.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Higgins.
Yes, I really, Michelle talked to me many times about getting a foothold and getting some grants to get going. I think the CDC is a strong way to start that. I'm glad we did that. We still need to look to a regional approach, but I think it was important for Cornelius to put down indicate some support, and the 10 units will be across the street. The Mills project is a good start. It's visible, but I think we need more of that, and it's going to take money, and I think we are going to have to look to other agencies, federal government, state government, somebody to help us get that funded. I think it's important to make sure that we've talked about the fire and police and other first responders and teachers. I think it's important that they have a place in town so that they own their job and own what they're trying to do here and get to know the public and get to know the people.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Johnson.
I was on the Affordability and Housing Committee that identified the need for the CDC. So certainly a big proponent of identifying workforce and affordability needs for those folks that work in and around Cornelius. I think that kind of a little differently, I think that we need to start putting some conditions on projects that come to us in the future that will provide a percentage of whatever the number of housing units requested, a certain percentage of that be for affordable housing needs. And I think if we do that, then we can certainly help to address that on a project by project basis.
Thank you. Mr. Menzel.
I would use a little different term than everybody else does. I like the term attainable housing. Affordability is a very subjective word. What might be affordable for one person may not be affordable for another person. So working through the CDC, which I think we're all really excited about, I think we could establish some sliding scales so that we can sit there and figure out individual by individual what really is necessary for that home or that townhome or that apartment to become attainable. And one of the things that I think has been done in the past, and I'd like to see it expanded, is the town has done a pay incentive initiative where basically they're compensating some of the local town employees. Actually, I should say it was initially for the police and the firefighters, but the town has expanded that out for all town employees to provide an incentive to help them with housing costs. And I think that that's money well spent. Reason why? Because they're going to be here. They're going to be spending money here. So I think a lot of that money will come right back to the town through that initiative.
Self-admittedly, you all just said you want to find a solution for affordable housing, and each of your options contained the concept of supply. So I'll ask you hypothetically, if there was a project put forward that contained 250 units, but the developer said that they would limit it to 70% AMI as far as their tenants, would you approve the project? And whoever wants to go first is welcome to go first.
Well, tough question. I'll take it.
Mr. Menzel.
It would depend. I mean, Justin, that's a great question. It's certainly a provocative question, but there's not a lot of meat on that bone to really address whether we would or not. I can tell you that when it comes to development, we need to be aware that Raleigh is watching. And what I mean by that is the Senate had a bill this year, I think it was 319, which essentially said that if a developer does a project with at least, it was either 10 or 20% affordable housing in the project, they could completely bypass the planning board and town board. So we need to get this right and understand what the need is before Raleigh comes in and says, if this board can't do it, we're going to do it for you.
So I'll jump in. So I think by establishing the protocol of how we're going to approve projects, by telling developers that you need to have affordable housing in there or don't bring it, I think that's really where we can stand our ground from a planning perspective, from a town commissioner perspective, is you want to come to Cornelius, this is the requirement. And we just won't listen to anything that doesn't include some percentage of that. Now, if it's 10 or 20%, that's a different discussion. We need to look at the whole project in one piece. But I think as long as we're letting the community know, including the building community know, that this is what it's going to take to build here, I think that's really the important part of that.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Carney.
So I think that it depends is a fair answer to that. But what I'd like to point out is this pervasive issue that we've had, which is, I will say, reactive growth versus proactive growth. Okay. And what that is basically us setting the map through a land use plan and then waiting for the market to dictate to Cornelius how it sees value in Cornelius, when it should be the other way around. It should frankly be Cornelius looking out of the market and saying, what do we want to bring to Cornelius that's actually going to drive value and drive quality of life for the community, and having an active strategy to do that rather than being passive and just waiting for the market to basically try. I mean, with all due respect, development is trying to get as much margin as they possibly can out of the real estate. And in doing so, they're trying to fit themselves into whatever filter we put across there. We have to change that entire narrative and that entire strategy.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Ms. Johnson.
I think each project has its own set of opportunities and components that go along with it. And I think it's not necessarily project related, but more creating standards around what it is we want as a town as far as affordability goes. And then looking to see, does this project fit within those standards?
Thank you. Mr. Higgins.
Yeah, I think 70% is a lot. I don't know what that percentage would be, but I definitely think that we have to decide as a town how important housing is, affordable housing, whatever you want to call it, in terms of how it fits with our economy, the needs of these folks, the folks having jobs here, retaining jobs here, and their impact on the community. We just need to look farther than what we're looking at right now in terms of, well, we need here 10 here, 20 there, somebody else to provide something else. I think the other thing too is I think the banks and the contractors and the developers and others need to play a stronger role with us in trying to figure out what that solution is. And while I was also involved in Affordable Housing Committee years ago, while there's a lot of ideas about it, we need somebody to champion that among that group in order to help us as a town move forward in providing housing that we need.
Another very important topic is schools. There is a school bond that is going to be up on the ballot. Do each of you individually support that school bond in the way it is currently laid out?
We've already said as a town, the commissioners that are sitting, that we do approve it, and I certainly approve it personally as well. Not just specifically because Cornelius is going to get a new elementary school and there'll be some additional schools in the area, but I think it's time that we focus on the next generation. And I know this doesn't necessarily touch on teacher pay. That's a whole other question, I'm sure. But if we don't have safe and comfortable facilities for our kids to learn in, I think we're really doing them a disservice. So I'm for it. I know it's a lot of money. I know it makes people nervous, but if we don't invest in that now, it's going to be $5 or $10 billion in the future. So I think it's important. We all support it.
Thank you, Mr. Furcht. Ms. Johnson.
I also support it. And I think our schools, some of the schools are extremely outdated, and we do need new schools just so that can support existing and current and future technologies. The other thing that I think that the current board did really well was put SROs in the elementary schools. I think that is absolutely fantastic. And what I would also like to see would be to find funding to have a second SRO at Huff High, just sheerly because of the number of students that they have there. And one SRO cannot support the number of students that they have within that building.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Higgins.
On the security issue, at the last briefing we had from the superintendent, I was amazed to learn with an open campus how much risk teachers and students are given the situation that we have today. So I'm all for the bond because I think we need to, not only schools 100 years old or they're falling down, they need improvements, but they also need these security improvements. And I think having those security improvements, I was very impressed with the comments about why the expenditure goes forward to really safeguarding the students. If you don't feel safe, you're not going to learn. If you're not comfortable with windows and other kinds of things that these schools need, then you're not going to learn. And right now, we need to improve the learning that's going on in our schools, and I think this would make a big impact.
Mr. Carney.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with the bond. I'm a father with 2 young children. Actually, they're right there in the audience. My daughter, Allie, who's 9, and John, who's 5. They're both at WV Washam. So education is paramount to myself and our family. It always has been. We want to make sure that they have schools that are brought up to modern day standards so that they're in a safe learning environment, but also the security measures that are necessary as well, which I should say, their favorite person is the security officer at the school that they like to high five from Cornelius Police Department.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Menzel.
Yes.
Okay. What would you say is one of the biggest things that if you could ask the state to change for the local towns, what would you ask the state to change? And I'll go with you, Mr. Furcht, since you're a current county commissioner, or excuse me, town commissioner.
That's a tough one on what to change. I think we all would like to have a little more of our own control, but also get the support from Raleigh from that perspective. And I think that DOT would be the first thing I would want to go after on that one. If we could have a little more say in the projects and really just get more support. I know every town in North Carolina is struggling with this right now, but to get the state to really listen to what the towns need and really do better from a focused perspective on projects and funding, because there's some parts of North Carolina that got a whole lot of money to put a whole lot of roads out, and there's nobody there. So I think our engagement in that perspective really would make a difference.
Thank you, sir. Who would like to go? Ms. Johnson.
I think process improvement really truly speaks to that. I think that the way in which they, Raleigh and NCDOT fund projects, it's very haphazard. And if they would create process improvements around that to streamline and to be able to get projects approved and be able to start implementation much sooner, that would help all of the towns and cities and counties all throughout North Carolina.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Mr. Higgins, sorry.
Yeah, I would like to see the use of more data in determining what are the priorities for the towns and the counties. When I ask given the data that we have, what would be the priorities for the improvements that we've funded and asked for in the town? And there's just no real agreement because that is not published, and it's also a function of many, many different variables. But I would like for those decisions to be made on the basis of merit and data that could be shared and then vetted with the local towns and the citizens about how we go forward.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Carney.
Yeah, so obviously roads, that's one of the big things is how roads get funded, how the process for which they have to go through is tenuous, it's difficult. It in many ways lacks innovation and creativity that I think brought down at a further local level could be exuded through local council. A lot of times they're closer to the problems, working with traffic engineers. That's certainly something that I think could be done, as well as also development flexibility. Let's say you have communities that are having vast and varying issues around growth and growth management, but yet a lot of times they're forced into the same box based on state statutes, and I think there should be some flexibility and some changes that happen there.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Menzel.
I think, again, I would just get back to the concept of relationships. In the background that I come from in the business world, it is what drives every bit of success that you achieve. You cannot do it on your own. We've got some great representatives here. We just had a little project that we've been working on that has to do with the water quality in the lake, and our representatives stepped up. I mean, the people there stepped up. I think you just have to maintain those open lines of communication. Get over there as much as you can, have them over here as much as we can. Again, the tail is not going to wag the dog when it comes to NCDOT. It just doesn't work that way. And I would also say, when we're leveraging those relationships, we need to include professionals within our town. Whether you call it a working group or you call it a task force, we have a lot of very bright people in this community that can help us come up with the solutions that we need to sit there and address the problems we've been talking about tonight. And I'd like to sit there and expand that whole networking relationship opportunity.
Well, I wish we had hours to discuss many of the issues. We are coming to the end of our session, so I do apologize for the other questions I did not get to yet. But for closing statements, I start with Mr. Carney, but this time we'll start with Mr. Menzel. We'll go the other direction. Why should people vote for you?
Well, you know, it was interesting because, yeah, like all of us, you get a lot of questionnaires through this process, and one of the ones came from the League of Women Voters, and they said, "Why are you the best candidate for town commissioner?" And my answer was, I wouldn't presume to say that I am the best candidate for town commissioner. We have an extraordinarily talented group of candidates here. We really do, and we're very fortunate as a town to do that. Why pick me? I guess maybe I have a little different background. When you run a business and you start it, you build it nationally, you just learn some lessons. Some of them the hard way, some of them not so hard, but you learn them. And I hope to bring those lessons to town government and bring that experience to town government for the benefit of the whole community.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Johnson.
As I said earlier, I am very passionate about Cornelius, and Cornelius is a great place to live. And what I would like to do if elected is leverage my experience, my insights, to be able to start quickly moving projects forward and addressing and implementing some of these infrastructure improvement needs that will absolutely quickly benefit all of the citizens of Cornelius and make this place truly the place that people want to live, work, and play.
Thank you. Mr. Higgins.
I think I stand on my record. I'm committed. I collaborate well. I build relationships, and I'm absolutely the belief that there are a lot of things that I've done that have had a very important part in improving the quality of life in Cornelius, and also had an economic impact. And that my experience before I became involved in the service in the community, and my experience and insight from talking to the community and being here every day, involved in all kinds of activities, committees, commissions, accreditation groups, all of those groups have provided me with the insight and the energy to go forward in continuing the work that I've already started.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Furcht.
So that's the easiest and hardest question probably for me, because when I decided to run two years ago, it was about change. And why should you have picked me? Because we said we were going to make changes, and I feel that we did that. And one thing people say is politicians never keep their word. Well, I can assure you we kept our word these last 2 years. We did what we said. We continue to do what we said. We listened. We continue to listen. And I supported the growth management results. I've supported fire and police wholeheartedly, against other commissioners that didn't want to, give them raises. And so for me, it's about making the town better, but listening and being actually part of the community and being out. Like I said earlier, you've got to be involved. You've got to be engaged. So I would ask, for 2 more years, and hopefully what I've done speaks for itself.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Carney.
Sure. So to the question of qualifications, as stated, why should the community vote for me? Again, my entire career has been dedicated to working with elected leaders on how to successfully grow and develop a community in ways that are really benefits not only businesses, not only the community itself, but also its citizens. And while I've been doing this all around Lake Norman for the past 15 years, I've been living in Cornelius. This has been my home. And for the first time, even when those communities have asked me to move out of Cornelius, that was kind of a deal breaker for me to actually work with them and consult with them. I basically said, Cornelius is my home, this is where my family is, and this is where I'm staying. But now I get that chance to actually help guide where Cornelius is today and hopefully provide some leadership, provide some knowledge, a lot of lessons learned from all the work that I've gotten to do. Hopefully I get to bring that to Cornelius and make it better for tomorrow and for my family.
Thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. Radio fam, we appreciate you. We're going to take a break for 5 minutes, and we're going to reset for the next session of Town Commissioners. Thank you to the crowd here, and thank you for the questions. Out to be a thriving area, and we are grateful for everyone here in the audience who is able to submit questions. We also welcome our digital family who's watching online to submit their questions as well. This is your opportunity to engage with the potential leaders of the town. And we've got another commissioner candidate slate now up here on the, is it the diocese? Is it
Yeah.
Dais, excuse me. Uneducated and uninformed. I appreciate it. What I would like, if we could, let's start left to right, similar like we did before. Please state your name and please also state why you are running.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Michael Miltich, commonly known as Dr. Mike. I have served as your commissioner for 6 years. I have served on multiple town committees and was mayor pro tem once. And I'm also very active in the nonprofit community. It will require a regional approach to obtain real solutions to our transportation issues. When I was elected chair of the Regional Transportation Planning Organization, known as CARTPO, my leadership skills were recognized and put to good use. I'm asking to be reelected so I can continue to be your driving force for solutions. I was told I only had 30 seconds.
That's okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Charmaine Nephew. I have lived in Cornelius since 1994. I raised my family here. I was the Vice President of Human Resources for North America. I have 40 years of experience as an action-oriented problem solver, team builder, and change agent. I was on the mayor's committee for wages and salaries. We put in a plan that we were able to close the door, the revolving door, on turnover among our police and our 911 operators. Currently, I'm also a tutor at a Title I school in Mecklenburg with the Augustine Literacy Project. I feel very strongly about education, and I want to be an advocate for you, and I promise to put the family first if I become your commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Osborne. In 21, you elected me to listen and to amplify your voice. Together, we protected your quality of life. I want to do it again. We equal the playing field for residents by giving them more speaking time in public hearings. We updated the land use plan using a resident-driven task force. We fully funded and staffed our police department and added 2 SROs to our elementary schools. We funded major infrastructure improvements to both the downtown and to Smithville. And for the first time, we funded dedicated pickleball courts. If you like these changes, let's do it again.
Thank you. Mr. Ross.
My name is Thurman Ross. I am running again for town commissioner. I have served the town for a total of 24 years. I live on the east side. I am a Cornelius native. When I first started, we only had like 1,200 citizens, and now we have over 30,000 citizens. And our slogan has always been make Cornelius a great place to live, work, and play. I think my experience and my decisions on serving as town commissioner has proven that. I think we all can say that we enjoy it, and it just didn't start yesterday. I think it started a long time ago, and I think I've been a part of that. I have been part of that experience and making Cornelius what it is today, and I would like to continue some things that I got started. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sansbury.
Hey, good evening. My name is Todd Sansbury. I'm a current town commissioner. I'm a native Carolinian. My wife and I attended school up the road at Wake Forest, met there, started our family here in Cornelius. We've lived here for 20 years, raised our children here. And when I really started to pay attention, and I love this town, I noticed some things that I did not like. I noticed that 1,400 high-density apartments were approved. I was told that you cannot use traffic and schools as a reason to deny projects. And we were also told that once projects were approved, they could not be rescinded. I was not happy with that. We did our research. We determined that all of those were not true. And quite honestly, when the last board ran, we ran to change the trajectory of this town. We have a great town, and we can make improvements. And I think to Commissioner Osborne's point, we have done that. And as a board, we would like to continue to do that moving forward.
Thank you. I will ask the same second question that I asked the previous group just to allow you all the answers. What do you believe to be the number one issue currently facing the town of Cornelius? And I'll allow whoever wants to go first to raise your hand. All right, Mr. Miltich. Doctor, excuse me, my apologies.
When I first ran in 2013, I ran the slogan traffic, 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 and it hasn't changed. But we are at the cusp of making some real changes with these projects coming out of NCDOT. But that's why I always focused on transportation issues. That's why I lobbied to get to be appointed as the delegate to CRTP for Cornelius. At that point, I became regionally recognized among my peers at the 26 municipal member committee, and they elected me chair in 2020. And under my leadership, 5 major initiatives were passed by CRTPO, and they're just now starting to bear fruit. But I'm doing my best and giving it a whole full strength effort to get transportation projects to not only Cornelius, but to our whole region and make this even a better place to live and work.
Thank you.
I think that we do have a very big problem with traffic. I agree. We have 6 projects that are in the works right now, and they'll probably help with traffic quite a bit. But I believe that we have a problem with affordable housing or workforce housing. And we have 80% of our population that leave Charlotte to work, and then 80% come in here to do work. I used to go to Charlotte every day to work, and I spend a lot of time on I-77, and it's one of the major reasons why I retired. So now I'm up here and I'm sitting in traffic because we have that same kind of problem. I think we have to resolve this workforce housing issue so that people can work where they live and live where they work. And I think that'll go a long way to help. We already have a lot going on with traffic, but I think that will help reduce it also.
Thank you, Ms. Nephew.
So,
Yes, sir.
so that's an interesting question. And
Mr. Sansbury.
sorry, everyone's going to say traffic. I would say it's really prioritization and proper planning. Because if we put the correct infrastructure in place in the first place, you can mitigate a lot of these problems. So again, instead of being reactive, I think we need to be proactive. And if you guys noticed the previous board, the very first thing we did was put a halt to any new developments until we could create a new land use plan to have a proactive approach to development. So if you can talk about public safety or lack of parks and recreation or traffic, a lot of that is really an issue of improper planning and prioritization of leadership. And if you get the right leadership in place and they listen to the citizens and we proactively make the investments in infrastructure, then we can alleviate a lot of these issues.
Thank you. Mr. Osborne.
Yes, land use will drive the traffic issues. So even when people had said, hey, you can't, impact traffic, it's all DOT. Well, you can, because you can impact the land use, right? And so having smart growth as opposed to just growth is a very important task that we took on as a new board. And that's, what I think we need to have continuity with through this next election, protecting that land use plan that we've created. Transportation, we do have projects coming through to fruition. But one thing that I notice about the DOT projects is that they leave gaps, and none of them seem to address the actual bottlenecks that are causing our issues. So I will completely focus all of my energy and efforts traffic-wise on those key bottlenecks, which in my opinion are at Ckezepis and Liverpool, Westmoreland and 21 and Bailey Road. And while we may already have projects there, they don't go far enough.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ross.
I would say, along with infrastructure and roads, I would say growth. I think we need to do a better job in growth, getting economic growth in businesses here. And in doing so, I think we can look for solutions that will minimize the traffic impact that's already exists. We have to look for innovative ways, and even if that means making it a destination where it'll be less traffic going to the businesses, but also very profitable for them. So I would go with growth, management growth, smart growth with least amount of traffic impact.
Thank you, sir. For our radio family, we are going to pause for 10 seconds for station identification. And welcome back into the candidate forum here at the town of Cornelius with our second slate of town commissioners potentially. I've got a question here in front of me from the crowd. What would be your plan for actually speeding up DOT potential delayed projects at this point? We all agree that traffic is an issue, but do any of you have an actual solution now? Dr. Mike.
I currently serve on the Beyond 77 Mobility Task Force, which is an outreach of CRTPO. It is a task force that's tasked with creating a collaboration of businesses, governments, and nonprofits up and down the CRTPO footprint, which goes from Iredale down to Union County. The purpose is to create a strong infrastructure advocate to speak on behalf of the whole region. Each little municipality going to Raleigh does it every day, but to create a regional organization that talks with one voice would be much more powerful. And I mentioned this to Senator Tillis this morning, and he agreed. The other thing we're looking at is developing a sustainable transportation funding mechanism for the region. Both of those mechanisms will bring more money into the community, which is the real solution to get things going faster.
Perfect. Mr. Osborne?
So speeding transportation projects, we've done that. So an example of that is instead of waiting for the next fiscal calendar year to have money allocated towards a road project, we actually made a budget amendment to expedite the handling of a study of road situations so we can improve upon it. And I think that's what you can expect from, from me moving forward is, again, if reelected. Also, I think, it goes back to setting very specific criteria and weighting and prioritizing what it is you want to do. And for me, again, I hate to harp on it too much, but it's those bottlenecks. And those are things we can do now because it's primarily adding turning lanes and or lengthening turning lanes. And in some cases, maybe just painting the road. So we have an opportunity to do things that don't require the DOT that can improve our situation right now.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Justin, I think your question was how can we speed up projects, right? So we have the ability as a town to do a reimbursement resolution. To Commissioner Osborne's point, we can invest some money up front and we can get paid back so we can expedite some of these projects. The other thing we need to do is push back on NCDOT. We are not beholden to what they tell us. And I'll give you a perfect example. The Torrance Chapel roundabouts, they said it was going to cost the city $11 million. We pushed back and said, you know what, that's ridiculous. We can't afford that. They came back to us and said, whoa, wait a minute. Maybe we can lower that price. Maybe we can work with you because it's just important to them as it is to us. So we need to get bold. We need to push back. We need to let them know that we need a voice. We need to get our fair share of investments. And there's some creative avenues we can take to make these projects move quicker.
Thank you, sir.
I think it's all about relationships. We got to go to Raleigh. We got to do it as a regional approach. I think the mayor's transportation task force is a great start. But if we want to be heard, we have to do regionalism and go to Raleigh and lobby.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Ms. Nephew?
I agree with Mr. Ross. I think collaboration is something that we need. We need to have our own solutions, but we need to collaborate with the other towns in the area to see what we can do and how we can push back against Raleigh to get what we need.
Thank you. Affordable housing is a broad topic, one upon which we could spend days discussing, but let's narrow down the focus to workforce housing. Would any of you support the idea of the town owning and managing property that allows for, let's say, town employees to live in?
I'll answer.
Yeah, Mr. Osborne.
Yeah, I'm not in favor of the town owning private residential units. I don't think that's the duty of the town. I think it's the town's duty and our duty to take care of our fellow residents and to work with private 501c3s like we have with the CDC to embolden them and to reach out in our community and to create partnerships with existing facilities that we have to create those opportunities for people that need them.
Thank you. Ms. Nephew.
I agree. I don't like the idea of the town being in the real estate business, owning and handling that. And it reminds me a little bit of owing your soul to the company store. I would rather we look at other ways to help. Maybe when we have a development put in, we say we would like to have X% of it for for affordable housing, or what we've done with the police force. We recommended that they give them an allowance if they wanted to live inside of the city. That helps them, that helps us. So no, I'm not really in favor of that. That could become a whole business in and of itself.
Thank you, ma'am. Who'd like to go next? Three left. Yes, sir, Mr. Sansbury.
Well, I completely agree, right? And you mentioned workforce housing, and I think we can probably do that indirectly by increasing the compensation of those that need it, right? So to your point, we have to define, the supply and the demand, and we have to create the ability of those folks to afford it. I haven't heard anyone mention the Smithfield Community Coalition. So I agree, we should not be in the real estate business, but we are partnering with organizations like Smithfield to create workforce housing options for those in the community. And that's the most important thing. We want to maintain for teachers and fire and police and service individuals. We want them to live in our community so they can be a part of our fabric. So indirectly, the town can provide funds. We did so through some of the ARPA funds. And the other thing we can do, and what the town does, is provide appropriate infrastructure to attract that type of investment. So if we had nice streets and sidewalks and stormwater drains, then we're encouraging developers to invest in that as well.
Thank you, sir.
Dr.
Mike.
Have to,
Oh, sorry, Mr. Ross, let me get Dr. Mike. Are you sure? I mean, you had your hand raised. I just want to make sure everybody's okay. Trying to be fair over here, So, Mr. Ross, go ahead.
I think we have to collaborate with the agencies that does affordable housing, workforce housing. I like to say workforce housing. The town has in the past worked with other agencies in doing this. So that's how Pool Place, which was the Habitat Community off of Beta Road, was established. It was a partnership with the town. So we need to do more of that. And I know we said the service workers for the town employees, but we also have to look at the broader community, because there may be other blue collar workers that works the service jobs that we enjoy when we go out to restaurants. We have to also consider those and keep those folks in mind as well.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Mike.
I've been working on workforce housing since Chuck Travis days. But this mayor put together an affordable housing task force, and two things came out of that. One is we needed an affordable housing plan, which would then qualify us for grants. The only community that has an affordable housing plan right now is Charlotte itself, and that's where all the money goes. So now we have passed a plan. The other thing is, we discussed it takes a partnership of government, nonprofits, and developers, a three-legged stool to develop workforce housing solutions. We had to create what is called the CDC, which I'm on the board of the CDC, I helped form it. It is a financial intermediary between those grant givers and the people that actually receive it. Because grants come with ties, rules, regulations. They want to make sure this agency, the intermediary, makes sure all the conditions are met and oversees the job. So I can actually say this CDC is, at the first time, actively supporting affordable housing. As we talk, we have placed one policeman in a Cornelius home. We've got another in the pipeline and some teachers. I've actually seen some progress in this field for the first time since I've been in this area.
Thank you, sir. Does anyone currently sitting up here believe that there is a path forward to bring down the cost of housing that does not include increasing the supply of housing in our town?
No.
The math doesn't make sense.
No.
Okay. Well, that would settle in for a minute there for a second. What do you believe to be the biggest goal you would like to see accomplished over the next 2 years? Mr. Ross, let's start with you.
I'd like to see citizen engagement with the developer, because we talk about growth, and a lot of times the developer may spend a lot of money in developing a plan, and then when it gets toward the end, after they spend all the money, there's a citizen uproar. So I think we do a better job if we get the developer in and citizens engagement along with the town engagement, and try to work out a workable solution if the development is going to happen.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Osborne.
Yes, I think there's an extremely large opportunity for us to make a major impact on a lot of residents that travel up and down Bailey Road. So anyone that's got kids going to school there that find themselves in traffic, people that go to the parks, people that live in the neighborhoods on Bailey Road, with all the new development that's coming in around the area. I've seen that, how dangerous it can actually be on Bailey Road. And I think this is the purpose of government. And I do see that there's an opportunity to make that a much safer environment.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Nephew.
Would you repeat the question?
Over the next 2 years, what would be the biggest goal you would like to see accomplished if you were elected commissioner?
You know, one is hard. I think the biggest goal I'd like to see is that we continue to improve on affordable housing for the people that work here so that they can live and work here. That would be my biggest goal.
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Mike.
In the transportation planning world, I've been told repeatedly that we can expect a 50% population increase between 2020 and 2050 in this region. So the biggest challenge, and if at the end of 2 years, I can say I accomplished this, is to continue our great quality of life in Cornelius while still in a very careful way accommodate that part of the growth that'll come to Cornelius. Now, Cornelius has been good. We've only grown 0.6% in the last 2 years. It's the other communities around us that are growing that is having that impact on their travel on us. So if we can actually balance the type of jobs we have in Cornelius with the type of housing we have and get them more on par, they would quit meeting each other every day on West Catawba Avenue.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sansbury.
So I think the number one goal of the next 2 years would be to speed up the bureaucratic process. It is amazing individuals who get to this position from the private sector and become satisfied with the painstakingly slow and expensive process of getting projects completed by the town. The citizens expect the town to provide certain services, and I truly believe that the town should do that. But we often fail them by how long it takes, how expensive it is, and our failure to meet their needs. So my number one goal is to speed up the process, see how we can reduce cost, decrease timelines, and actually listen to citizens and complete the projects that they want completed.
Thank you. Given that the fire truck just came by out front, and where everyone I know in this room is grateful for all the service members and the wonderful staff we have in the town of Cornelius, as it relates to the fire department, do any of you believe that not having a full-time fire department is a better plan forward?
When I was a commissioner and Thurman was there too, we studied this. The current volunteer part-time fire department is unsustainable. It's not a solution. So we had to make plans, 6-8 years ago, to start going forward into a full-time department. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Mr. Osborne.
So we're going to have a full-time fire department. It's coming on and we need it. Huntersville's looking at bringing on a full-time fire department. Davidson's looking at bringing on a full-time fire department. Inflation is going to impact our budget. We have got to get very serious and creative and find ways to get more out of our tax dollars. And I would like to understand better if there's an opportunity there for the three communities to work a little bit closer together with regards to the fire department, especially when you consider how the fire department in those trucks has to respond to medic calls. So if you have a single medic call, if someone breaks an arm, they have to send a fire truck out fully staffed with 4 firemen to go there instead of having the medic respond. And so I think there's some opportunities regionally to help each other out there.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Nephew.
As a human resources professional, I think that this part-time status is not something that helps you attract, retain, or develop employees. So I strongly believe that we have to have a full-time fire department, one that is trained and able to help us when we need them. But I also agree that we need to find ways to collaborate with our neighbors so that we can maybe find a solution that is economically feasible for the 3 towns in this area.
Thank you. Mr. Ross?
Having a full-time fire department, we got to look at it. It helps with the insurance of all of our homes. So we have to look at that as well. So not having a full-time fire department is something of yesterday, and we can't go forward with the growth that we're having and the big houses and the apartments without a full-time fire department.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sansbury.
So these guys are exactly right? There are many shifts that are not fully staffed currently. I think a lot of people don't know that. And there are also some thresholds we're not meeting for manpower when we respond to certain situations. But surprisingly, we meet the time thresholds to respond to an emergency, to a call. So even though the fire department is understaffed, they are meeting these incredible timelines. These men and women are incredible, and we owe it to them to convert them to a full-time force, give them the resources they need, and compensate them appropriately.
Thank you. My producer, Bill, in my ear won't quit asking me about Robbins Park and the parks that are back there. Do any of you believe that will actually ever get finished as far as developing out that entire park, or will that just be a blank field forever?
I hear they have more pickleball in their future is in the globe here, right? So who knows?
I haven't seen a timeline, but they're in the process of updating the park master plan.
It'll happen eventually.
Okay, so that was all a yes, by the way, Bill, just so you know. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the budget for a little bit. What would you say is your top priority as you think forward to next year's budget?
Staffing.
Mr. Ross.
I would say staffing. Making sure we have the adequate staffing, especially in our public service department, public safety.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, when we came in, the police department could not compete with the surrounding towns, and neither could the administrative in our building. We had 13, at one point we had 13 open police positions. We filled those positions to the point where at one time earlier this year, before any natural attrition, they were all completely filled. And we took the same approach with our admin and the fire departments. So making sure that our public safety and our admin are completely compensated fairly is extremely important.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Nephew.
I feel strongly about making sure that we pay people appropriately. I think that paying people is the first step towards having people with job satisfaction who enjoy what they're doing, who are engaged in what they're doing, and who want to stay where they are. I think when we take a look at the budget, we're going to have to do a very close examination of the needs and the wants of our citizens and the revenue that we're raising, and seeing how we are going to balance that, because our cost will continue to go up.
Thank you. Mr. Sansbury. Oh, or Dr. Mike Rose raised his hand again.
I try and raise my hand.
That's okay. No, it's good.
But this is a recurring issue. It wasn't that long ago that you had that committee that worked for the town, and Thurman and I voted an emergency pay increase because we were hemorrhaging police like crazy. So if you look at the priorities of a town, public safety is right there as number one of the obligations of the town. And so when you set the budget, you've got to go by that as making it also your priority. But after those, staffing concerns are taken care of, which are very critical. I think transportation needs to be high up on that list too. And one thing I did back in 2016 is I formed a transportation capital reserve fund where we've been putting over $1 million a year in just for these upcoming transportation projects, which we knew were coming down the road. So now we have $9 million in cash that we can spend before we have to take out dime one in a loan. That's what you have to do is when you set a budget, you've got to look 10, 15 years down the road, know what your expected expenses are, and plan appropriately.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sansbury.
Yeah, so I mean, the budget is probably the most important thing that the town board makes decisions on. And unfortunately, one of the few levers we have to pull to raise money is taxes, right? So from a budgetary standpoint, I completely agree. Staffing is the number one thing that we need to maintain. But I think we also need to we need to look long-term, and we need to get better at forecasting the monies we have coming in and the projects that we need to pay for, and try to bring those together. Those are often not in alignment, and then we make some last-minute decisions to try to fill this in or to try to cover this. So I think we could do a better job of trying to forecast and look ahead and appropriately plan.
What do you believe to be, as you campaign and as you find ways to communicate to people, the best way to help keep people educated in the town about what's going on? Because I think what I continuously hear is that communication is a top priority. And how do you see that being achieved?
Yeah. So, I'm sorry. Well, so
yeah, Mr. Sansbury, go ahead.
Another commission.
I hear this answer.
Well, we created the Neighborhood Advisory Committee to do just that, right? It was a two-way feedback system, so we could help keep folks up to date on what was going on. We could also solicit feedback. It did not work that well because we didn't get great citizen engagement. And to your point, we hear this all of the time. One thing we are doing, which I think might help, is we are upgrading our website. that's going to allow for better communication, better newsletters, and we can also receive information from citizens, and we can collate that and bring that together. But I think it's a matter of us getting out, talking to citizens. We need to disseminate as much information as possible. But the most important thing we need to do is listen. It's not about us giving information. It's about us listening and processing that and being able to make changes that the citizens really want.
Thank you. Dr. Mike.
Yeah, when I was a commissioner, I used to host approximately monthly events that I called Cornelius Conversations. And I'd buy pizza and I'd say, I'll buy the pizza, but you have to talk to me about what your concerns are. And especially if an upcoming approval was pending, I would try and hold it near the site. So I wanted here, and that's so important, I wanted the citizens to talk to me. I didn't want to download to them. I already know what I know. I want them to tell me what their concerns. I know that. And then in 2020, a little thing called COVID hit. And that was the end of the Cornelius Conversations, and I haven't figured out how to renew that again. But I would love to get citizens engaged in the process.
Thank you. Ms. Nephew.
I have to agree. I mean, it's listening to what our citizens have to say and finding ways in which we can engage with them. It's what works in management, in the private sector, and it's what works in the public sector. They have to know that we're listening to them, and when we listen to them, then we advocate for their needs and wants.
Thank you. Either of you? Mr. Ross?
We have to come up with different options. I agree with that. But also, trying to get feedback from them may be hard, but so we may have to do extra push and disseminate information. We may need to disseminate it through our churches, our different organizations, making sure that the groups around town, the community groups around town, have the information, and that may start a conversation, because the average person may not have any issues if they get into their regular day routine. And it's only when you start messing with their routine, their daily routine, that they get involved and want information. So we have to be proactive and put the information out there and give them opportunities to give us feedback if they so choose.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Osborne.
Yeah. So, it's interesting in the business world, and as a previous business owner, I can't just sit there and tell people, hey, listen to me, or hey, tell me this. The thing that worked best was literally getting them involved in the process, right? So that's what we did with the growth management task force. We actually said, hey, y'all come in from all over Cornelius, representing all parts of Cornelius, different backgrounds, come in and represent your neighborhoods and get out and talk and work within your neighborhoods. And let me tell you, they did it. And we got fantastic feedback back and forth by getting them involved in the process. Additionally, I think we can use some technology to improve the way we communicate. We tried to do surveys, and I certainly give us credit for that. We put out many surveys, but there is technology out there, and it is improving, that allows us to have more dialogue assisted by the technology. So it comes across as more of a dialogue as opposed to us just putting out surveys.
Perfect. We are coming up on the end of our time. And so how I started this way, now I'll go back this way, and we'll have the same last question. Mr. Sansbury, why should people vote for you?
So, it's interesting. We attended a breakfast this morning with Senator Tom Tillis, and he was talking about issues at the federal level. But I think his conversation boiled down to, when elected officials are put into a place, they should be held accountable. And whenever they work together, they get things done. At the end of the day, citizens put elected officials up here to be a spokesperson for them. So I would hope that our record of the current board, we have focused on three things. We have listened. We have listened to folks, and we've done exactly what they've asked for. We've learned, we've made some mistakes, but it's incredibly important to learn and to make improvements moving forward. And to everyone's point, we've tried to leverage our relationship. We've tried to leverage our resources. We've tried to do what's best for the interests of the citizens of Cornelius, because everyone is smart up here. And I've seen decisions made in the past and currently that aren't very smart. So I hope that you will vote for me, and let's continue to make smart decisions for the citizens of Cornelius.
Thank you. Mr. Ross.
I would say, look at my experience. I've been here for a while. I've seen a major growth in Cornelius. I think we made some good decisions. We did learn from our mistakes, but I think overall, I have always been committed to making Cornelius a great place to live, work, and play. I'm a native of Cornelius, so I'm very passionate. I bring a different perspective to the board, one with a lot of history and of Cornelius. So I would ask you to take a look at that, and especially my experience.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Osborne.
Sure. So in the last campaign, the thing that I heard the most, and I didn't hear it near as much this time, is that citizens didn't feel they were being listened to. And I think it's because we did listen to them. And I think that's evident when you see what we were able to get done. And it really started in one of our very first meetings. We changed the bylaws for the town to create a level playing field for the citizens so they could have as much time as an applicant in a conditional zoning hearing. And, that may be somewhat symbolic, but it's effective as well. People actually got to express. And I think that we did that for the last 18 months that we've been here, but we fully delivered, and I anticipate delivering again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Nephew.
I believe in a collaborative approach. I have used that approach during my 40 years as an executive with international companies. So I have the professional experience to handle a variety of problems and get them solved, to listen, to walk the fine line between the citizens and the town. And I want to see our town heritage preserved, but I also want us to be prepared for the future. I think that we've, in the past, grown faster than our infrastructure, and we need to have some proper planning in the future where we look at the short-term, mid-term, and long-term problems and how we fix those. And I will always make families a first priority in all of my decision-making. And that's why I hope you'll vote for me, and you can find out more about me at charmainenephew.com.
Thank you, ma'am. Dr. Mike.
You've heard tonight from multiple candidates the words relationships and regional. And in my 6 years as your commissioner, I was able to make relationships in the whole region. In fact, when I went in to file for this election, the mayor of Mid Hill was coming out and looked at me and said, Mike, I'm so glad to see you're filing again. We need you back at CRTPO. That's the kind of impact I have. Our challenges are complex and require thought out, not knee-jerk solutions. I hope everybody can come visit miltichforcommissioner.com to read my testimonials so you can hear what other people who've worked with me have to say about my work ethic and what I've accomplished. And then hopefully you'll vote for Mike Miltich so I can continue to be your driving force for solutions. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you to the crowd for submitting your questions. Radio family, we're going to take a 5-minute break. And the main bout is coming up next, the mayoral portion of the night. Stick with us. our candidate forum tonight, the town of Cornelius, and we are in the beautiful town hall here in downtown Cornelius. We are now in the third section of tonight's forum, which is the mayoral candidates. Thank you both for being here this evening. We appreciate you both. We also want to say thank you to the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, who I did not say thank you to at all thus far for putting this on. You can listen to Bill Russell's show, Town Talk, on WSIC every Wednesday from 4 to 5 p.m. We appreciate Bill and the partnership we have with you, Bill. I think everyone knows who you are, but for our radio fam and our digital fam and people in the room that may not know who you are, if we could, I'm going to go left to right, just to be fairness like the other groups. If you could state your name and why you are running.
Okay, very good. Good evening, everyone. My name is Denis Bilodeau, and I do want to thank Bill Russell and the Chamber for having this forum. I also want to thank you, Justin, WSIC, a great station. Appreciate you being here, and Senator Tart for participating as well. But most of all, I want to thank the citizens and those that are here, and then also those that are at home listening in. And I can tell you that this is an important discussion because we haven't had a mayor's discussion in 15 years. So here we are. We're actually having a discussion. I'm keeping Mayor Washam company up here. And the reason that I am running is that I see the mayor's role as setting the stage, setting the agenda. And in terms of what's really important, it's a mayor who brings together a team. And if you look at my career, and you can find that on BillDoForMayor.com, you'll see that I worked with a very large national company leading large groups. I've started a business here in Cornelius, and it also branched out to other towns in the state of North Carolina. So I've got a broad experience of working with teams, looking beyond just my hometown, but understanding the good, the bad, and the ugly that might be happening in other towns. But I do have skills and leadership ability that I think match well with the mayor's position. And now recently retired, I can make it a full time.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Mr. Washam.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Woody Washam, and it's a pleasure to be with you tonight. Thanks to the Chamber for the good job you always do here, and thanks to WSIC for your sponsorship here and involvement. It's been 6 years since I started this job as your mayor back in 2017. I started 4 years prior to that as your commissioner and mayor pro tem for 2 terms. You know, it's been a great ride for me. It's been a great experience for me. And I'm just grateful for all the support I've gotten all these years to continue some pretty good programs for our town. I'm a banker. I've been a banker over 50 years. I continue to be a banker today. You know, banking is about relationships. And what you will hear from me is those relationships are also important to the town of Cornelius that have been built over many years. So I look forward to telling you about that tonight.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bilodeau, you brought up the agenda, and you brought up the concept of that the mayor sets the agenda. Should you win the mayoral election, what would be your #1 item on your first agenda as mayor?
Yeah. The #1 item for me, and I think you heard that with some of the commissioners, is communication. So urgency and communication are 2 things that I've learned as a small business owner. You can't put together a 2 or 3 year task force and expect to continue in business. You really have to look at each item, make sure that you're communicating not only between citizen and town board, but also within the various boards within our town. So an example would be right after the land use plan. It would be very nice to get together with the planning board, with the park department, but make sure that everyone understands exactly what's going on. We have 4,200 individual email addresses that we push out information. In our town, a town of 32,000, we should have at least double that. So there are a number of ideas I have that will bring communication and bring the important issues to the town board, have a back and forth understanding.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Washam, your stance will be a little bit different because you currently set the agenda. So I'll say, what would be your #1 priority should you be elected again?
Well, it would be communications as well. I think a lot of people know me as a communications mayor, if you will. We've started all this years ago with our world famous coffee chats, which went on month after month after month, and I certainly will fit to continue those into next year. We've tried a few different things this time, but you've got to talk to citizens and explain to them what is going on. You've also got to listen back. And every one of those coffee chats is a listening session. And that has been a good way to move that forward. But when I became mayor, we did not have a communications manager in this town. That was one of my first requests and actions that was taken, was to hire somebody and put them in place. And we've been all the better since. We have moved the needle, and we're not there yet. We're absolutely not there, but we've got to listen to our citizens. We've got to continue to survey them. And I think citizens know what they're talking about, and you got to hear them out.
Let's talk about the budget. What do you believe to be the number one priority as part of the next budget for the town of Cornelius?
Well, I think we have to have some straight talk as far as what our forecasts look like and what our results are. So for the 6 years that I've been a commissioner, we've had a surplus in our budget. So we plan for a budget and we come out ahead on average $4 million per year. So rather than just putting that into a savings account, the general fund, I think we've got to be strategic. You know, we've got to play chess, not checkers, and understand where that money's going to go. And it can't be just sitting there waiting for NCDOT, because unlike what I've heard, you know, relationships, what has it brought? Not one shovel in the ground for all those years. So my point is that if we have cash that is excess cash, we should use it for local projects, things that the town can manage and pay for and hopefully get paid back by DOT.
Thank you, Commissioner Bilodeau. Mayor Washam.
Say the question one more time.
Yeah, what would be the number one priority for you in next year's budget as you look forward?
Gotcha. Well, first of all, we've got to take care of our employees and our staff and our public safety. That would be paramount to do that. But for the rest of the story, we've got to have a good, safe budget. I love it that my manager produces revenue to a point where we have surpluses. And I do not believe in deficit spending in this town. We asked Senator Tillis that question this morning, and that just doesn't fly at this level, nor is it allowed. So forecasting is important. We can always be better, but we do doggone good job at it. It's hard to know what sales tax revenues are going to be from year to year, but we work hard at guessing the best we can, and we want to make sure we got money in the bank to pay for whatever's coming down the road. So that is it's a key point, but we got to pay our employees for sure, and pay them well and competitively.
Transportation is no secret here in the Cornelius area. Everyone knows it is a top priority. There are many different routes we could go, whether that be state level, but keeping it within our town right now, besides Catawba Avenue and that project, which everyone is waiting on pins and needles for, what would you say is the next most priority project you would like to see done?
Well, Justin, I love you, but I actually think exit 27 is the top priority. You know, because if you think about widening West Catawba, and that's a great project, but if you move it from 2 lanes and 20,000 cars a day to 40,000, where are those cars going to go? They're going to go straight to the exit 28 Diamond. They're going to go to a bottleneck at 73. So I think, you know, there's work to be done to get a flyover east-west connection at Bailey Road and exit 27 as quickly as we can, even if we have to work around a partnership with, say, Atrium, for example, and go to Raleigh and talk about something that's outside of NCDOT, sort of using the Lowe's headquarters exit 31 process. But I know we have 6 smaller projects that are very close to being, you know, coming to fruition, but we also should not wait for DOT and do some of our own projects that some of the commissioners mentioned as well.
Thank you. Mayor Washam.
We have a lot of projects going on, a lot of needs in this community. So beyond West Catawba Avenue, you know, we do have 6 approved projects. When I started my elected career, if you will, one of my first assignments was CRTPO, and I was on that committee for 4 years, 4 long years during the toll road extravaganza, I guess you'd say. And that's when their 13 projects got vetted and literally approved during that time frame. So we came from nothing to 13 projects in a pretty short amount of time. Dr. Miltich, as he noted earlier, helped see through the rest of the story. So thank you for doing that. But we've got important projects everywhere, and I'm not willing to give up one single one of them. We need them all. We deserve them all. The clock is ticking, and we will take 6 of those 13 to contract by the end of the year. I mean, excuse me, in 12 months.
Thank you, sir.
I wish we could by the end of the year.
Just by way of a CRTPO update, looks like 2 of those 6 projects may be pushed. So again, just a typical process going through the NCDOT CRTPO process. They're unpredictable at times, so I'm hopeful that at least 4 of those 6 are done within the next 12 months.
You both have held elected positions for a bit of time here locally in the town of Cornelius. You've also both lived here for quite some time. What would you say is the best change you have seen take place here in Cornelius?
Well, you know, in terms of some of the amenities, and I would point to our greenways, and we're getting close to fully connecting the greenways, but we have an excellent quality of life without that dark cloud of traffic. But at the end of the day, what I like is the progress that the Parks Department is making with the greenway, with park amenities. Yes, pickleball is on the radar, but there are things that the citizens want. So at this point in time, I'd say that I've noticed a lot of traffic, a lot of foot traffic, bikes, folks getting out, especially post-pandemic, to enjoy the lake, to enjoy our greenways and trails.
Mayor Washam?
Well, the best project that's taken place is right across the street from here. It's the Kane Center for the Arts. You know, it has enhanced our downtown. It's been the impetus for downtown redevelopment and growth. That downtown redevelopment and growth is coming. We had to raise $25 million to accomplish that, and I was head of the major gifts campaign to do that. Not bragging, I had a lot of help, but we got it done. And look at what we got now. Opened 9 months ago. It's very successful, and it's going to take us to the next level in downtown redevelopment, but also our parks and rec department. What a good job they do. I'm so proud of them. We have 260 acres of parkland, and you add to that, we got about 400 acres of parkland and also undeveloped land. So we got some things to think about in the future to continue to develop out our park and greenway system. And we're about 80% on our greenway system. We got a ways to go there, but we're going to get that done here in the next couple of years.
Mayor Washam, I'll ask you about affordable housing to start off, and Commissioner Bilodeau, I'll come back to you on it as well. You have been part of a task force you commissioned a task force for affordable housing, and you subsequently what came out of that was the Cornelius CDC, now the Lake Norman CDC. Do you believe that it will require a regional effort to truly tackle the issue, or can Cornelius handle it on its own?
Well, we led the way. That's what was important to me. We weren't going to wait around on Huntersville or Davidson to join in any longer. We had a need here, and we needed to start the roadmap of how to move that needle forward, and we've done that. The mayor's task force had the best of the best on the topic involved there. And, you know, what a great group it was. We did formulate our Community Development Corporation, CDC. We've hired a great executive director. Actually, this past week, I was able to work with a donor, anonymous donor, to provide $250,000 to that organization. That check has been written and the money's in the bank. I'm so grateful for that, but we'll move the needle. It's a lot of money out. As a banker, I know that. It's a lot of money out there and available for affordable housing anywhere, and we just got to go ask for it, and that's where we're heading. And I think I'm in a position with the relationships that I've established to make that a fantastic effort here in North Mecklenburg.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bilodeau, do you believe that it will require a regional effort to tackle the affordable housing issue in our area, or can town of Cornelius handle it on its own?
Yeah, it's a regional issue, so it certainly will take a regional effort. And I was a part of that the first day of the task force back in 2020. So what came out of that, as the mayor suggests, is a very nicely run CDC. Also wrapped in there is the Smithville revitalization, which is a great plan. But I also want to mention that, it took 3 years for the board to sign off on the final plan for the task force to sign off on the housing plan. I like quicker action. I like urgency. And late last year, there was a senior rent issue that I put a budget amendment before our board, and we passed that to provide immediate help for rent for some seniors that got an enormous 30% plus increase in their rent.
I would like to hear from both of you your definition of affordable housing.
Well, I'll start back up here. Affordable housing is for those that simply, you can put all kinds of formulas out there, but affordable housing is not big apartment buildings out there. That doesn't qualify for the definition in my town to put citizens in those kind of settings. I don't think that's necessary. But we can supplement their rent in existing structures, in development projects if they happen to be approved. But it's a percentage of your income that you ought to be throwing at your housing. It's about 30%. We carefully monitor that. We carefully qualify people. And guess what? If you put a pencil to that, that's a salary of about $85,000. Our police officers don't make that generally. Our firemen don't make that. Our town employees, most of them don't make that. Retail workers don't make that. We have got to do something to allow them the ability to work in the town, to live in the town they work.
Thank you. Commissioner Bilodeau.
I'll refer back to candidate Menzel. Bob, I thought, said very well that, affordable is misleading. Affordable to who? But I like to look at it as a situation where we've identified within our town a manageable target, and that being, you mentioned before, our employees, our first responders, teachers, and seniors. And I'd love to measure that. What is our impact for housing for those that are working here in town, and set objectives that we can, as a town, measure to see how we're doing. But we can't solve everything. We just said that it should be a regional solution. But when you're looking at the town of Cornelius, we can do the stipend for our employees and certainly take care of our first responders who take care of us, the seniors who are, on fixed incomes. I think we set up data. I like to measure how we're doing and judge how we're doing based on the results.
If you look at the role of the mayor, ultimately it is a connector between the people and the town commission. How do you view the culture you would like to bring to the board or keep at the board as mayor?
Well, the culture I'd like to bring to the board is them being a part of our Cornelius way. And the Cornelius way is really defined when you drill right down on it, just going beyond the call of duty to do the right thing. That emulates throughout our entire town hall, all of our employees, and should emulate with our commissioners that get elected as well. We have some good opportunities to make some good change. But as long as you're keeping the citizens in mind and are doing the right thing for them, going the extra mile, I think that will truly make a difference. But we've got so many good things going in our town. There's so many wonderful nonprofits. The faith community has done so much for our town, and it fits right into that Cornelius way. Beginning many years ago with the Neighborhood Care Center, that was an outgrowth of one of our faith communities here. Plenty more opportunities for that to happen, and I certainly support that and will be involved with it to the extent they will let me.
Thank you, Mayor Washam. Commissioner Bilodeau.
Yeah, I see it as a culture of convenience, a culture that brings the message out where it needs to go. I talked about earlier about the emails, and I look longly back at the coffee chats post the Acropolis. The size of the attendance just kept dwindling, and then of course the pandemic put a stop to that. The current coffee chats just aren't working. In my view, I go religiously to the coffee chats, and I see more staff than folks attending. So I think what we need to do is fix what folks want, how they want to hear the message, where they want to hear it, come out to them and do it in such a fashion that it doesn't take a lot of time. You get right to the point. I think in this busy world, folks don't want to spend an hour or 2 hours in the middle of the morning or during their day. So we've got to find solutions that work comfortably, conveniently for our citizens.
I'd like to hear from each of you. What do you think are the best ways for a town to grow? Commissioner Bilodeau?
Well, I think you have to have smart growth and you have to listen to the citizens. And I can tell you, if you look at my voting record, there are examples of how I've listened and met with citizens. I do not accept donations from developers. You know, I will return checks. I never have accepted developer money, and I won't have them on my advertising as far as, you know, being indebted to them for giving me a pat on the back. I respect and we need developers, but we also need to listen to the citizens first. And that's what I've tried to use as a guide in terms of how we develop going forward in this town.
Thank you, Mayor Washam. What do you think are best ways for the town to grow?
Well, again, giving citizens the opportunity to talk to us and tell us what they want. It's not about the 5, 6 people, including the mayor, sitting up here. It's listening to the people. And recently, I listened to the people out at Bailey Road and voted no. I don't get to vote much up here as mayor. That's just not part of what we typically get to do. But I got to vote that time. And when you're looking at a petition with 500 signatures in a room full of people, that's pretty powerful. It's not political. It's the citizens talking to you. And that's what you've got to listen to. But we do need more mechanisms to communicate with them. I'm available. I meet with all kinds of people every week. My wife Sharon can validate that. It takes a lot of my time. I always take folks' calls, and you know, they have things they want to communicate to our town government, and it's my job to listen, and I will continue to do that. We will start the coffee chats back. I will promise you that. That's coming back in January if I'm reelected.
I've heard you both talk about the position of Cornelius between other areas. The traffic we see isn't necessarily people coming home here to Cornelius, but people passing through. How do you see the relationship continuing to evolve with the surrounding towns around Cornelius?
Yeah, that's a real good question, and something's very important to me. And one of the reasons that I started the mayor's task force in the last few months is to go ahead and let us figure out what our priorities are and how we can pay for what, and you know, and get some of these projects moving. We're moving in a good direction. Actually, we got our 4th meeting, I believe, tomorrow, and it ought to be a good and rich one. But beyond that, I also have a great relationship with the mayors of the Mecklenburg communities and the mayors throughout Mecklenburg. We meet on a frequent basis. Probably every 6 weeks or something like that. But I meet with Rusty and Melinda probably once a month, and we talk all the time and wear each other out on text. But communications and relationships with the other elected officials in these towns is beyond critical, because our traffic problems and our growth issues are not caused by our town. They're caused by our surrounding towns. And so we've got to work together, absolutely. And a bigger voice is better than a smaller voice. You gotta know that in the world of politics when you're working with state government.
Thank you, Mayor Washam. Commissioner Bilodeau.
You appropriately pointed out that we're situated in 2 very large or fast-growing towns, Huntersville, Mooresville, and both of those towns will have a new mayor after this election. So I do think it's important to look at the corridor and not just focus strictly on Cornelius. We have projects, whether it's Highway 115, 73, or even Catawba, that we should be celebrating. When Huntersville gets a project approved and moving, they should celebrate with us as well. So I do see that that need to go forward to CRTPO as a voice that's, you know, hundreds of thousands of people, not 32,000 from Cornelius. But at the same time, we definitely need to work on our projects here locally that can clear up bottlenecks. And some of them are easy enough, but we can certainly take care of it. We do have cash in the bank that would take care of the payment now for those 6 projects, given the DOT participation.
Let's talk about schools. I assume both of you support the school bond that's been put forward for Mecklenburg County from CMS?
I certainly do. I was probably one of the first to come out with that particular support. Continue to support it. It's non-negotiable for me because there is not a plan B. There's absolutely not a plan B. $2.5 billion is a lot of money, and it may cost a little bit of a tax increase to pay that debt at the county level. We don't have a choice. We're getting a fair return out of that here in North Mecklenburg, here in Cornelius and Huntersville, North Mecklenburg High School, and a couple of new schools going up. So I'm pleased with what we're getting. We just got to get it passed. There is some opposition, but I don't know what we will do. I don't know what the school board will do or the county if this doesn't pass. Like I say, it's not optional and there's no plan B.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think that's right. I did ask Superintendent Hill what Plan B was, and she basically, it's a shoulder shrug that we really don't have a Plan B. It was mentioned, that safety is a big component, so that's key for me as well. And there's a lot of examples of what the new buildings will do from a safety standpoint, from the overcrowding standpoint. But I'm also sensitive to those who are reacting to the cost in terms of the 3 pennies and the tax increase. May not be sitting well with some folks. So I do think that as this hopefully passes and rolls out of the ground, that we keep good supervision of how that $250 million or $2.5 billion is spent, because that's a huge number, and it's something that really should be cost controlled.
Thank you both. We are going to pause for station identification since we have entered the top of the hour for our radio family. Please pause. And welcome back into our candidate forum here at the town of Cornelius. We are currently with the mayoral candidates. Thank you again to the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, Bill Russell, for allowing us to take part of this today. Let's talk about mass transportation for a moment. There's obviously been news recently of the Red Line in Charlotte putting more money, I believe, $4 or $5 million toward reevaluating what is happening with the Red Line and the potential use of it. Norfolk Southern also releasing a statement, which may not have been the complete answer, but seemed more positive, we'll say. Do you believe that the Red Line is a viable solution for mass transportation for our area? And I will let either of you go first.
Well, let me jump in and say that everyone should be aware that the Red Line will not be light rail; it would be commuter rail. So it's not as efficient, if you will, as what folks might think of the Blue Line and others that service Charlotte. But I did hear Councilman Driggs pitching the fact that he needs the tax increase to make that study work. And I guess I'm a bit skeptical, given all of what has been promised in the past and how we've been hanging in there, that we do another study and do we actually get something that we want and need. So until I see some hard evidence that the railroad has signed on the dotted line saying, yes, we'll help, yes, we will cooperate, I'm still sitting back looking for other options, in terms of rapid bus transit, other ways to get people to ride share.
Thank you. Mayor Washam.
Our Metro Mass Transit Plan contains 2 components. This isn't a new thing. The components are the Red Line and bus rapid transit. Those are the 2 components. As far as the study goes, the town of Cornelius is not paying for the study. CATS is paying for the study. And the reason CATS is paying for the study is we will not get a dime of federal money unless we have a current study, in our pocket to go after the federal money. And there's bazillions of dollars sitting up there waiting on us right now. You heard Senator Tillis this morning, those of you that were there. There's money, it's either going to come here or it's going to go somewhere else. It's not money that's going to go away, or reduce your taxes federally. It's absolutely needs to come here. So without this study, it will not happen. So that's the importance of the study itself. It didn't cost in our taxpayers anything. We do need the Red Line. We do need better bus transportation. There is a better chance with the Red Line today than there's ever been in my lifetime, or certainly my elected official time. So I'm hopeful.
Should priority be given to projects that have a focus on transportation and the effects they have in the community?
Well, certainly the land use plan that the current commissioners have put in place talked about, there is that attention being paid to where density, if any density is happening, where it should be, along what corridor. But certainly in terms of what we have coming out of the ground, we've got to look at this as our opportunity to take care of transportation before anything further is approved or actually becomes a reality or built. So the clock's ticking. We've got a couple of years here where we've really got to move on some of these local projects, and then also watch as NCDOT brings forward their roundabouts and other proposed improvements.
Thank you, sir. Mayor Washam.
Having developments planned around transit certainly makes sense. We've got one that was approved years ago out at Sefton, and if there was a good reason to vote for that, I didn't vote. That was because of it, because it could hook right in with that park and ride and create some good opportunities for living, workforce housing, if you will. However, I just don't feel like every aspect of the growth management plan is exactly right. One of the big holes in it, and Denis sits on that committee, or he did, was the fact that our land use plan and our zoning doesn't match up. That's confusing to landowners, confusing to developers, and it's really just kind of not fair to represent it that way. The owners of these properties, they don't know what to expect. They don't know who to sell their property to, and there's points in time related to property rights that you ought to be able to actually turn your property if you choose to do that.
Again, the role of the mayor majorly being a connector in the community. How do you see the best way to resolve conflict when it's presented to you in your role as mayor? Mayor Washam, we'll start with you.
You got to hear people out. You got to give them the opportunity to know the facts. Generally, when I get concern from citizens or concern from a standpoint of a particular whatever is going on in their neighborhood, it's simply because they don't have all the facts. It's not that they're dumb or anything like that, but they don't know a lot of the facts that is in the picture and part of the decisions that town boards and mayors have to deal with. So educating folks is a key component of that. We've really tried to do that with transportation, because there's plenty of people, maybe some of y'all, that don't believe that the transportation projects will ever happen. They will happen. They're coming our way, and they will happen. However, people don't believe that, and I don't blame them. I really don't, because they've gotten delayed. We need to figure our way better down at CRTPO and get some of those projects done and finalized here in our community, and get some discretionary funds up here that will make a difference, because we hadn't had any in quite a few years.
Thank you. Commissioner Bilodeau.
Yeah, I really look at the mayor's position as one that's a contact sport. You have to contact the individuals. You have to approach the situation. And I prefer, there's a coffee chat. I always invite someone who's in conflict. Let's have coffee. Let's sit down. Let's talk about it. Because I believe if you can, it's not always a win-lose. If you can figure out a way to satisfy the issue, it may be something new and creative, or it may be, as the mayor says, just a better understanding of where each party is. This town has a lot of resource. We've got great staff. And whether it's leaf collection or missed garbage pickup, there are a lot of things that can be solved very quickly and very efficiently, either through our staff, but certainly face-to-face.
Commissioner Bilodeau, if you were to win the mayoral seat, what would you least look forward to in that role?
I think for me, what I would least look forward to is social media. I'm not a picture guy. I do want to promote, as someone who will promote the town, but I'm not one, and I'll have to brush up on how I get, where I am in town and what I'm doing, get that out there. I don't look forward to that, but I embrace that as part of the role of the mayor.
Mayor Washam, what has been your least favorite part of being mayor?
Probably working with DOT. That presents so many challenges and so many frustrations My service on the CRTPO, once you think you figured it out, they'll change it. And that's frustrating. It really is. But you got to live with it. I mean, you can't live without North Carolina Department of Transportation. You've really got to work with them. So working with people and actually trying to convince them that our needs are legitimate and that we deserve a shot at it has, it has its frustrating moments. I'm kind of a perfectionist, and I beat myself up a lot, very honestly, in terms of making sure we got it right. There's a lot of variables in what we do, and I can't figure out why some people just can't understand what our needs are. So it's a little bit frustrating, but you plug on. You never, ever, ever give up. That's for sure.
Going back to schools and given the school bond, if we assume that it passes, how long do you think that fixes the current issues we have until we have to, let's say, beg for more money?
Well, if you're looking at it on a regional basis, you really should understand that we have students that come from Huntersville or Davidson that are filling our schools. So in terms of our need, that could last a while. We're not growing to 100,000 residents. We're at 32,000 roughly. And, if you look at what we have planned, we should max out under 40,000. So if we can satisfy our students and make sure that CMS is looking at solutions that handle the Huntersville growth, the Mooresville growth, well, not Mooresville, but Davidson, but making sure those fast-growing towns are taken care of and supporting that they take care of their students, and hopefully that'll work out for all towns combined.
Mayor Washam?
The good part about this bond referendum is that it will provide more schools to the south of us, which will offer capacity. We've got a new West Charlotte High School now. We're going to have a new North Mecklenburg High School. There's capacity at Hopewell High School. So Huff High, technically, they tell me it's not overcrowded. I'm not sure I believe that, but that's what the school board says. So what this is basically going to do with this bond referendum is shift students south. If you live in Huntersville, maybe you're going to get to go to a Huntersville school. If you live in Cornelius North, maybe you go to Huff High School. So, I think the shift in student population will get us by for a while, but it won't solve the problem forever. When there's 113 people, new people moving to Charlotte and the Charlotte metro area every single day, that is a compelling statistic that, I don't know where that's going to take us into the future, but we can't close our eyes to it because that could be problematic.
Thank you both. We're now going to go the opposite direction again, as we've done with each of the other sessions. For our last question, Mayor Washam, why should people vote for you?
Well, it's been a good run for me, and I think there's more things to do. As I said earlier, I've had a great opportunity to build some wonderful relationships at every level of government. We have such a good relationship with the county. We get immense funding from the county for our parks, our greenways, for support for all sorts of things in our parks programming. I'm really proud of that. But at the state level, we've got $2.5 million a couple years ago to help us with the Kane Center funding. That was part of my role as Major Gifts Chairman. We just got $3.5 million from the state of North Carolina. That was clearly a relationship issue that got us there. We had some help, certainly from Representative Bradford and Senator Sawyer and others, but we are the proud recipient of that, and that's all about relationships. I've done it for 50 years in banking. I can continue to do it, I think, for the benefit of the town of Cornelius. So I hope people vote for me again.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Bilodeau.
Thank you, and thanks again for this forum. I think it's very, very important. I really want to bring action, not just activity. And I think that's where my background as a business owner, the knowledge that goes beyond the 15 square miles of our town to bring new ideas. The coffee chats just have not held up over the years, and there are new ways to communicate. I'd like to bring new ideas and also really push the urgency when you have an issue like traffic and you have a task force that puts together a chairman, a co-chairman, and a vice co-chairman. that to me sounds an alarm about too much red tape, too much time. In fact, that task force has a target of December to bring the results. We need the results in October. That's what NCDOT is looking for. So I hope you'll consider a new approach, urgency, and vote for Denis Bilodeau, bilodeauformayor.com. Thank you.
Thank you both for being here tonight. Thank you to the wonderful crowd here. Everyone behaved well in here. Thank you again to the Lake Norman Chamber. Thank you to everyone listening on the radio. Thank you for everyone watching online. That will be available on demand for everyone to watch over and over and over again. Yes, we know that you will all enjoy that. We appreciate the time tonight. We hope everyone will be safe. And remember to vote. Your voice matters. Thank you all.